insights to outcomes to budget. We're going to be focusing a little bit of our attention today, or a lot of it, on what we're doing to help organizations move from data creation to creation of insights that lead to an outcome or an action that then could help to inform and or instruct where our budgets could go or should go. So again, back to this notion of data is not enough. There are many barriers to action. And we know that lots of organizations get frustrated after they've created their inventory, they've done their costing, they've done scoring. A lot of them poop out right there. But what we do know is this: there are several barriers, and I'm going to talk about these barriers, and maybe some of them will resonate with you and your organization. But we are working diligently to help organizations overcome these barriers through the implementation of an insight workshop. One of the first that we see that's really common is an inadequate understanding of purpose. Why are we undertaking priority-based budgeting in the first place? What are we doing, and why have we created all this data? What's the purpose of this? What's our target? Another barrier to action is fatigue. Like I said, for some organizations, they get weary from undertaking all the work, right, of inventory, costing, scoring. Then they wipe their brows and do a collective sigh. Whew, that was some great work. Now what? Organizational bandwidth is a barrier. And what I mean by that is this: we're all here trying to make the train run on time for our organization, but in many cases, we just don't have the individuals, the organization, the understanding to be able to take it to the next level or the next step. Another issue clearly is time. And as I just mentioned, we're trying to make the train run on time. We're delivering municipal services. And when we're delivering our municipal services, it's tough to carve out and hold space for us to do work that deals with strategy. Another issue is resources. Resources, whether it be time again or money. In many instances, organizations forget that just like a private business, sometimes you have to spend money to, in the city's cases or county's cases, to save money. Poor communication is always an issue, no matter what initiative you're working upon. But we've seen how poor communication is rife amongst many of the organizations that we work with as it relates to PBB. Again, going back to why are we doing this? What's in it for me? How am I supposed to deal with this data? How do you want me to change? What skills do I need to change? Another one that's huge is lack of an executive sponsor support. This is tremendous in that we know from a change management perspective that when we do not have a clear and concise message from the executive who's running the organization, whether it's your county administrator, county manager, city administrator, if that piece is missing, your potential for success is diminished greatly, because people are going to do what they see leadership sees as important. Next is silos. In other words, departments that are so entrenched in their own work and absorbed with what they're doing, they're not paying attention to what any other departments do. That's a barrier to action sometimes, because in many instances, our clients will say, that sounds like a finance or budget issue. That's not an issue for my department. But again, at its core, priority-based business intelligence is predicated on management decision-making. So if you are a manager and you make decisions, silos can't exist, because you have to be able to communicate and work across departmental lines to come up with a strategy. And that's exactly what insight workshops do. Again, missing strategy. Why are we here? Where are we going? What's our goal? That's important. Or the last barrier, maybe it's not the last barrier, but it's one that we see very commonly, and that is there is a lacking of confidence. What do I do now? Now that I've done the inventory, costing, and scoring, where do we go? I'm not sure where to go with this. And that is a barrier. So moving along here, our role with insight workshops really is twofold. First and foremost, what we want to do is we want to foster an environment where we not only create the space, but we help you hold it as an organization, carving that time out with the minds of the wise crowd to help you generate as many quality, actionable insights in the shortest period of time possible. Secondarily, what we're trying to do is this: we are trying to teach you how to fish. We don't want you just to go through a bunch of exercises and create data just one time. We want you to be able to learn some new strategies on how to communicate and collaborate so that you can move forward as an organization in the future to replicate this whole process where you can continuously look for improvement and creating new insights as you go forward into the future. So how does this look? Again, I'm going to go to this next area. Looks like this. We actually start with an area we call hopes and fears. And we hope that you participate with us today too. Sorry, I'm grabbing everything wrong all over the place here. We didn't lock this down. But as we talk about things, we start with hopes and fears. When we first engage an organization for a workshop, what do you hope will be accomplished by this particular workshop? And again, where would you like to go is a question that we will ask. Similarly, we talk about fears. What's holding you back as an organization from taking action on your data? So if you would, and you feel inclined, please feel free to drop in the box that Mike's working in right now, Mike Seaman, what your hopes and fears might be, what hopes and fears you might have. Just take a second to do that. Yeah, again, you just double click in that box. It should give you a sticky note. Let's see here. Some of them are coming on. I'll read them out as they come. Free up resources to fund future initiatives. Excellent, Chris Fabian. Yes. Brad wants to find our adjacent possible. Excellent. Love it. Yeah. Cool. Those are great hopes. How about fears? Departments guard their budgets. Yes, so true. Departments not being able to think outside the box. Marley, you are on it. Excellent. And not landing on concrete enough actions. Yes, that is a fear. Lack of communication. Excellent. These are all good. And I want you to continue to think about that. If you want to continue to ideate in that area, that's great. This is the kinds of things that we do with an organization in preparation for an insight workshop. It's not that we just show up virtually. Maybe someday we'll show up on your site again, hopefully. But we want to prepare folks. And just as much as important as it is the exercise itself is the prep. And the preparation work is super important for us to be able to work with you, your leadership, your organization, to help, again, contribute to why you're doing this. And so 4 questions that we ask, and these 4 questions that are below that hopes and fears box, first and foremost is this. Again, where would you like to go? Number 2, what's holding you back right now? Number 3, who should be involved? Who is an asset to you? Who inspires you? Who encourages you? Who needs to be involved in insights? And then lastly, what do you have? And we ask this question because it's so important. In many instances, it helps to generate insights in and of itself. What resources do you have? What is the one unique thing about your community that helps to attract people to come, or what resources do you have that would help to promulgate or promote your organization moving forward with strengths with respect to your insights as well? And again, as we move along, we want to help people to ask themselves, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Are you like Ann Arbor, Michigan, that Chris is going to talk about later, that created a climate action and energy plan that needed about $1 billion to fund? That's the problem they were trying to solve. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't remember exactly the number, but it's a huge figure. What's your why? Why are you undertaking this workshop in the first place? And we will help you to formulate that why. And so as we move along, again, what we do is we help you to create an elevator pitch, not dissimilar to what you see here in this particular example. This is a county administrator from the Unified Government of Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, Doug Bach. And he said, hey, we are undertaking insight creation to help maintain a fund balance that allows us to sustain ourselves through difficult fiscal times. We want you and your team to create a elevator pitch that can be shared with your entire organization, that explains why we're doing it, gives the purpose or the vision or the goal, as well as shared with your elected officials and your community. here's what we're doing to undertake this particular workshop. Now, as we think about the secret sauce, if you will, for insights and our workshop, what does that look like? Well, here's what it looks like. It is predicated on a large amount of cross-departmental collaboration. What we found from doing some insights early on were that we had departments just working within their own department. What becomes of that is an echo chamber of ideas, and there's no challenge. In many instances, there is a lot of idea generated, but they're not ideas that get pushed and prodded and poked. And so we now encourage teams to work in cross-departmental teams to develop insights and to refine them. We use interactive exercises like some of the ones that you're doing today, as simple as a digital whiteboard with Mural, and some other exercises that are really fun to keep the energy up, but to keep people engaged, because again, second to last bullet, we want to have every voice in your organization who participates heard. We don't want the introverts or the quiet ones to just shrink back into their against the wall someplace. We want them to participate and be heard. And so we use those interactive exercises to encourage that. But we also use your data. We utilize your PBB data to support insights moving through the funnel. And we're going to talk about the insights funnel in just 1 minute. But that's important to, again, to harken back. It's not just we're creating ideas, although we can do that to help your organization as well. We want you to create ideas surrounding your programs. Additionally, this is really key. We want to encourage your folks that are participating to understand that they are internal consultants. ResourceX, we don't have the answers to your challenges and problems that you're facing or opportunities. You do. And so what we do, we're like the old BASF commercial. Remember them? They're the German chemical corporation that says, we don't make the products that you use. We make the products that you use better. Well, similarly, we don't make the insights that you come up with. We just make them better by carving out the time and space and giving you some strategies to help create the insights that are going to help your organization own their future. And that's the whole important thing of thinking about your organization as internal consultants. Again, that don't allow external forces or pressure to come upon them, because you are proactively working towards creating your own future through the creation of insights. And again, lastly, it's about teamwork to create that fiscally sustainable future. Well, next we're going to get into some insight exercises, and I need to do a little bit of prep work for this. But what we're going to do now is quickly take a look at the funnel, the insights funnel. And the funnel of insights works like this. We basically have 3 phases of our workshop. We have a create phase. And in that create phase, we ask ourselves the question, what could we do to create a more fiscally sustainable Edmonton, or more fiscally sustainable Fort Saskatchewan, or more fiscally sustainable, I'm looking at all the people that are here today, fiscally sustainable Fabianville, whatever you represent. We want to make sure that you ask yourself, what could we do? The next phase of that funnel, and again, we're trying to winnow those ideas down into actionable things. We ask ourselves the question, what should we do? So initially, you got this huge universe of ideas. Then we get down to a point where we have some ideas that have been filtered somewhat, filtered through themes that are created by your organization. So for some organizations, they're very concerned with themes of equity. They're very concerned with themes of fiscal sustainability, which we all should be, but they get more granular. And we look at those through return on investment, political, organizational filters. We get down to this. Ultimately, to answer the third question of approval, and that's where you go to commitment. So we want to move people from ideas to commitment very quickly. And that last phase is, what will we do? And how are we going to commit to doing these things? So that's where we are. I am going to now send you a link to another product that we have. And I want to have you jump into this too, because this is going to be fun, hopefully for you. I'm going to drop it into the chat box. And so we're going to go in and we're going to do a little exercise we call 2510. And in 2510, basically what it is an opportunity for you to come up with some thoughts and ideas and then vote on them to generate ideas. And this is one of the products that we will use in our webinars with you. So hopefully you can join. I only have 5 people so far. I need 6 participants at minimum. So please jump in. I'm just going to call this test. Add the activity. I'm going to allow you to see the 2510. But here's the deal. What idea do you have to make your organization more fiscally sustainable? Now I'm going to start the session. So we have 6 people, which is awesome. And it's going to prompt you to enter an idea. So hopefully you can see my screen here. Enter in your idea of what you could do to make your organization more sustainable. If you still want to join the exercise, you still can. Just use the link in the chat box. Are you seeing my screen here? Are you able to put in some ideas? Yeah, we got 1 idea. Good, keep them coming. 2. Could be as simple as, hey, we need to quit doing stuff that doesn't matter. Or it could be complex like, hey, we need to go for more revenue, whatever it is. Keep those ideas coming. 3 ideas out of 7, good. Keep them coming. 4. Yeah, keep them coming, guys. 5 ideas, good. So the goal of this particular product, it's called the Control Room app, is to generate as many ideas quickly. And then what we do, we'll have some voting sessions. And I'll wait 1 more minute to see if we get the 8 ideas from the 8 participants. Maybe we will. We'll start voting now. So now I'm going to hit this voting button, and you should see some choices for you to vote upon. There's going to be 5 rounds of voting. And you vote on the ideas which you think have the most merit. Okay, got 2 more participants need to vote. Yeah, there's 6. Come on, 7. If you haven't voted, vote. All right, now we're going to move on to the next. Yep, there it is. Next round of voting. Here we go. Again, vote on this idea. Okay, next round. Excellent. We got 2 more rounds of voting, guys. You're doing great. You guys are getting the hang of this. And again, this is one of the interactive tools that we will use in a workshop with our clients that help generate ideas. And you will see here shortly a list of ideas and how they rank. 1 more vote. One more vote. You can do it. Who's out there? Who hasn't voted? Well, in the interest of time, if you're not going to vote, we're just going to view results. But this is what ends up happening: is you get a scoring of a rubric like this, and it's called 2510 because 25 points are the maximum points you can get for any particular idea. So the top idea that was thrown out there was review outdated fee schedules. Good stuff. That's great low-hanging fruit to address. Number 2 was reduce duplicative effort. I love it. Seek new creative entrepreneurial sources of revenue. Partnerships, excellent. More energy efficient products, excellent. Combine jobs from different departments, love it. Increasing user fees. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the start of the creation of insights. This is how we help you to create insights in a very quick fashion. Now, these are ideas, but then what we would do is in the workshop, we would take these, put them back onto the mural board, and have you go through some additional exercises to develop these thoughts and ideas into more functional and usable means of moving forward. So great job. I'm going to stop my share right now, and I'm going to allow Chris Fabian, or actually I can keep sharing. I'm going to allow Chris Fabian to pick up where we just left off. He's going to talk to us about insights in action, not one word, but in action, and about how you can take your insights, similar to what some of our other clients have in our workshops, and go forth from there. So Chris, take it away.
Thank you. I'm using Mural as well, and I have just tried to ask to be followed. If anybody wants to follow my path along the way. EK, can you hear me okay, by the way? Sound coming through? Awesome. Eric's right. My role here, I want to talk about insights in action. And I actually want to zoom out for a second and provide a little bit of background on our own journey with helping with insights. So as Eric mentioned from the beginning of the presentation, the fulfillment of your work, success, is being able to not only create your data, but take action on it to make positive changes. That's what we're all about. And from the very beginning of our experience in PBB, we recognized that some organizations were just doing it naturally. They were able to take their data, move forward, and at the same time, other organizations were not. So we've been very interested in that, realizing that success is being able to take action. What could we do to create a pathway or to create software enhancements, services that we could provide, exercises, anything that we can do to help our organizations more consistently and repeatedly achieve the kind of successes that we all know are possible. Sometimes we demonstrate the greatest levels of success and we share their stories, hoping that it inspires you to achieve what others have achieved, but we want to create a repeatable path. And I want to take you on a quick journey of how we've arrived at the insights approach that we have today. So I'm moving my screen around. One of the very first things that we practiced and that we learned was the power of stories and the power of being able to share one successful experience with you, with organizations. If we repeat success stories, they will stick in your minds, and then you might aspire to achieve those successes. So as I scroll over to the right, it's really funny to us that one of the stories that stuck around for so many years, everybody remembers Boulder Yoga, except for maybe if you weren't around from like 2008 or whatever. But Boulder had this yoga program that fell to the bottom of its prioritization, and council members were all upset because they knew that citizens were really excited about the city's Boulder yoga program overall. We investigated a little bit further and come to find out it wasn't unclear why it scored so low. It didn't add to their safety as residents. It didn't improve their transportation system. It's not mandated, and it wasn't recovering its fees. We started to get somewhere with this exploration of basic program attributes. Long story short, way back when Boulder got into the yoga business, before a lot of cities were into yoga, residents loved it. It was a subsidized program. You fast forward to today, this graphic on the right is meant to illustrate, one council member made this joke, I think we have more yoga studios than Starbucks, and it turned out to be true. At the beginning, they were the only game in town in the 70s. You fast forward to today, there's plenty of other yoga studios. And the only thing keeping Boulder in business was that theirs was subsidized. They're offering it for free, thereby sort of competing with the private sector. And what they did is they formed a partnership saying it's not right for us to be in this business any longer. How can we partner with the private sector? And it was the right programmatic decision to make. And so I mentioned this again only to say it's this idea of storytelling, and we recommend it to you. We want to continue to share stories of successes because it will help you to aspire and prove the point of what you're trying to achieve. Share our stories with your departments. Share your own stories of quick wins as soon as you have them. Well, I moved down a little bit. What we found was that stories were great and examples were great, but they too weren't enough to create that kind of repeatable success that we're looking for. So here I'm trying to demonstrate we moved from this 0 to 1, having 0 case studies to the first. to a framework to recommend. And many of you have seen this before. But we then created a blueprint for the types of programmatic changes that we're trying to encourage among the PBB community in hopes that this sort of framework would be your guide. And we also rolled out a philosophy that every program you offer today should have a theory about where it's headed. We called it Every Program Has a Future. And the idea was you can look at this blueprint overall, and it was a balanced equation. On the left-hand side is, hey, we need new resources to fund a great future. And this is what we're trying to do. We either can free up our current budget to fund what we need to do in the future, or we can generate new sources of revenue to fund what we need to do in the future. And there were a host of various strategies for reallocation of resources and revenue generation. And our theory was every program should be able to have an opportunity area associated with it. Maybe we can source the program differently or find a program efficiency. Someone had mentioned in the 2510 staffing fire with a lesser level of human resources. Great. Is that a program efficiency or is that a service level change that you're recommending? And that these designated trajectories, these designated futures of programs were up for debate. I might believe that a program should be growing and needs more resources, service level increase, while others in the organization might say, well, I agree with you, but I also want you to come up with creative ways to fund it. So there should be a revenue strategy there. So the blueprint we rolled out, I believe, 2 years ago with focus first and foremost on identifying what you need resources to do. This was really important to get really clear on the left-hand side of the equation, because absent a clearly defined why, Eric Keck just mentioned this, it's really hard to get departmental buy-in to free up their own budget or to work on changing the status quo unless there is a persuasive or convincing argument that we need resources for reasons X, Y, or Z. In the last year, we needed resources or reallocation ideas or revenue ideas to balance a budget. That's a great reason. It's to fund or offset a deficit. But for other initiatives, whether it's Ann Arbor's climate, new infrastructure, new programs that you're hoping to offer, what is it that you're trying to accomplish and what do you need resources to do? You could follow over to the right-hand side of the equation then, and we focused on the two prime opportunity areas to generate those resources. One, we could focus on the revenue side, which many of you contributed those ideas in the 2510. You talked about looking at user fees, outdated policies for cost recovery. This tends to be psychologically the easiest place for a lot of departments to start because they can think entrepreneurially about new revenue much more painlessly than they tend to think about reducing resources or reallocating from the programs that they already provide. Just human nature. So this was entrepreneurial ways to generate new revenue through fees or charges, insourcing, et cetera. And then the top right of the equation was, where can we go to reallocate what we already have? It turns out the local governments have this great bounty of resources. It only goes so far, but might we be able to spend it differently in order to free up resources and fund what you need on the left-hand side? And so the point here being, we introduced the blueprint. We've been encouraging how organizations can demonstrate or communicate year-to-year changes in resource allocation at the program level. And this is actually something that we are talking about in our own software enhancements, our own product roadmap, is how to describe this blueprint approach. But the whole idea, as you see here in Washington County, Brad Steckert's on the call, he came from Washington County, is even for an organization that was losing its tax base, its collection from its citizens was going down, which is pretty much every local government during the COVID era, they still managed to fund new needs at a high level because of resource reallocation and other creative ways to generate revenue. And so we thought this is really great. So we've got this blueprint framework. This is just one more example, these two slides below, of the city of Littleton, Colorado, who has taken a a very measured approach to applying the blueprint. But it's pretty cool because you can see at a program by program level in the tools, even something as simple as reallocating resources away from payroll processing, here the green bar to the blue bar, year to year, by not filling a vacant position and eking out a little bit of savings. That's real savings that gets reallocated to some other type of program. But again, big picture, the blueprint we rolled out in hopes that it would create this consistent, repeatable path to taking action. And it has helped, just like telling stories like Boulder Yoga, but we needed something else. Last year, I'm sorry, 2019, I shouldn't say last year, we're now in this great new year of 2021 instead of 2020. But the idea was we were seeing a lot of great work or hearing about it, like Washington County's work, but it's very tough to understand exactly where these types of programmatic changes were taking place and communicate it. So we needed to get it into the tools. And so in 2019, this was one of the great leaps forward or breakthroughs. And here you're looking at Salem, Oregon. We went through this idea, this philosophy that every program should have a future to it. Every department came in and had to tag their programs. And what you're seeing was, for the first time, we could actually show it in the tools. What are the programs that are being identified for cost recovery? What are the programs that are on the table for program efficiency? Which programs have a partnership or outsourcing opportunity, and so on? And it was there for everybody to view and communicate about. And this is really key. When we talked to the Salem City Manager, Steve Powers, and here's reporting capabilities in the tools as well, to kick out a report and say, here are the programs tagged with certain opportunity areas. One profound observation from their city manager, Steve Powers, he said, what he likes about having the insights in the tools and being able to look at the ideas that are generated from his staff, he said, if you went back to the Great Recession, they came up with, they would have like revenue forums, then they would have cost-cutting forums, and staff would generate all these great ideas. And then you fast forward a couple of years and you look back and you say, what did we actually do? Number one, which of those ideas are still on the table that we could use again because there's another revenue shortfall? And then information is lost. It's like in somebody's sticky, we're doing digital experience with digital yellow stickies, but it's in someone's facilitator's toolkit from like 1985. And the idea is, by keeping it in the tool, we always have that intelligence, this growing list of opportunities that we could take action on if we needed to. So we are now moving from, we have stories which inspire people. We have a framework. Every program has a future and a blueprint for action. We have it logged in the tool, so you keep track of that business intelligence and you have your running list of opportunities. The next part, which is where Eric and Mike and the whole team over 2020, we had some real breakthroughs, was talking about insights in and of themselves are great, but we would come across great ideas that organizations would not necessarily take action on. And so we needed to move from, we have this wealth, this universe of things that we could do, to what is the forward momentum to actually execute on any of these plans. And that's what we're calling insights to outcomes. Denver, Colorado had a specific approach where they were less interested in simply resource reallocation opportunities, but they also wanted to move the needle on a particular objective they had, which is increasing equity. So by, just like EK mentioned, by leveraging their program data, looking through the lens of equity, they identified insights, things that they could do to change every program, or not every program, but review every program in their program inventory and ask, what can we do differently for snow removal, for example, to improve our achievement of equity? And lo and behold, by applying insights in this way, you could come up with ideas for every program, even as mundane as the impound lot, for giving people more equitable opportunity based on their definition overall in the city and county of Denver. And that was really neat to understand. There's the resource side of it, applying the blueprint, but there's also for any objective that you're trying to achieve: fiscal sustainability, improving equity, or climate action, as we'll talk about in Ann Arbor, where you can apply insights to achieve that particular goal. So with the addition now of our little path here, what I'm trying to communicate is we've been building this for quite some time and improving and trying to evolve it. We were now set to try to move towards a more repeatable execution plan. And I mentioned that 2020 really put things into focus for us, because for the most part, a lot of organizations last year, their outcome they were seeking was how to survive the epic fiscal distress caused by reactions to COVID-19. This is Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and they defined their, they quantified the size of their fiscal gap, and then applied insights on their programmatic data to come up with all of their opportunities to try to solve that particular problem overall. Eric mentioned earlier executive sponsorship. They had it in spades. In fact, their city manager said, you know, one way or another, we have to balance the budget. And if we don't come up with these insights, we will balance the budget. It's just going to look like it has in the old days, across the board budget cuts. And that's not what we want to do. So this was the opportunity to come up with programmatic ideas in their workshop setting that would offer alternatives to simply across the board cuts. I make mention of Cleveland Heights here, and I'll pause for just a second. Eric mentioned the importance of getting cross-departmental collaboration to get out of the echo chamber of your single department. And he's totally right. In Cleveland Heights, we experienced departments who would say, there's one utilities director, hey, this is the way we've done business. This is the way we've done business forever. We're always looking for efficiencies. I don't know what more I can possibly contribute. Her point was like, I'm not holding back on you or anything. I just don't know any other ideas I can come up with. And the police chief and other departments would review her programs together with her and simply offer up ideas that seemed like they were coming from a novice perspective. And that alone would help move a department to say, you know, that is a possibility. One example was if they had sewage backups in certain residences, the policy was you just call the city comes out, they clean it, they take care of the work. And through questioning that, they discovered that not every other city does it like that. A lot of organizations at least charge a small fee. So there we had a revenue opportunity that is very reasonable and not too hard to swallow. You move over to St. Albert, very similar approach. They also were grappling with a large budget shortfall. That's what you see over here on the right-hand side. So they set the terms, this is our why, and now we need to come up with insights to solve this budget deficit. What they introduced was other key aspects of an insight. How actionable is it? Is it something that we could do within the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and so on? And how complex is it? Is it politically like a no-brainer? Like, hey, we're going to charge a fee for sewer cleanouts and clean up at a residence, versus something that might be a little bit harder politically, like, hey, we're going to merge fire departments or something like that. And with that spectrum, they could differentiate the types of insights that were more actionable than others. So this was a breakthrough. I urge you or suggest that you go and check out our annual report. Liz or Eric or anybody, if you have a chance to drop that into the chat, that would be great. We did highlight a few communities from this last year, City of Fort Saskatchewan being one who's on this call. And this is an animated slide from the slide deck, but the punchline to the story was they have communicated their actions that they're recommending in their budget at a program level. And it looks so much different than line item level detail. And so that communication is fantastic about their insights. Littleton, we highlight in the annual report. Again, just please go check it out because they went from their first approach in 2019, which was pick 3 programs to apply to the insight, the blueprint framework, sorry. And in 2020, they used the blueprint framework for all programmatic recommendations as they were approaching achieving a balanced budget for COVID. So that was really super exciting. And then, as Eric mentioned, we most recently, towards the end of 2020, had Ann Arbor, much like Denver, use the insight approach to say, we have this climate action plan. Yes, we have a budget shortfall from COVID, but we can't afford to hit the pause button on aspiring to fund this $1 billion climate action plan. What can we do? What can we come up with that will help us generate insights that are actionable to free up resources, create partnerships, and still try to muster the resources that allow them to pursue these goals that are not, these challenges that are not going away. What happened in Ann Arbor, and this is the very next section, is that Eric Keck introduced something. He had just mentioned this in the funneling approach, that it's one thing to create a list of insights that you might take action on. It's more to move from that create list to what you think you might recommend, things that are actionable. And that's where you're adding pieces of information about the timeline for taking action and the complexity and the actual dollar amounts that you might be able to save. And then yet even a third step was, what would we approve? What would we submit to city council and stand behind? And that flow all the way to execution has also been one of the latest breakthroughs to move from blank slate to a list of options that you could consider for execution. The most recent, which is happening right now, is Kansas City, Kansas, and the unified government, where through tools like you're using here with us today, you're getting to experience one of the latest innovations. The idea of creating an engaged digital experience that fosters more collaboration, communication, and ownership fundamentally is one of the breakthrough ideas that we're really trying to work on right now. Again, this is the last slide I've got. With the hopes that we're trying to make it easy for you to take your data and move to action. Everything I just walked you through has been our evolution for how stories are so important, a designated future to debate. Every program has a future in the blueprint. Using the tools and documenting this information, being able to have outcomes that are very specific, an execution plan, and finally, what we're tackling right now, more ownership and greater degree of collaboration. These are the keys to success as we know them today. But hey, we are still always looking for innovations and the next round of ideas, so we'll keep going. I quickly, oh man, so many slides. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling miles up the wall. To come to the tool section.
Chris, I may have messed you up. This was your, I thought you talked about the tools. This was the tools section.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Well, this was only a minor part of the presentation anyway, but there are, in your tools, there is a pathway to go through insight creation. What could we do? The second step, insight recommendation. What should we do? And finally, approval of insights. And it develops a ready-made report in the tools. And that is the only additional piece of information that was more software focused for what it's worth. And if anybody's interested in seeing exactly how that works, there it is. Mike's got it. I can zoom in for how this actually looks in the reports, because it is pretty cool. So you move from, following.
Sorry.
Like a,
there you go.
The what could we do section is pretty high level, just all departments getting in the tools, scouring their programs and saying, blueprint recommendations. Could we generate revenue? Could we find an efficiency? Could we partner? That's what could we do? The second section then is the yellow compared to the blue. It's a subset of all the wide possibilities. And these come with more specific questions, which is about execution. Who's responsible? What are the budgetary impacts? What's the degree of complexity, and so on. And then finally, getting consensus and a recommendation on what will we do is step 3. And this is the sequence of the workshops, the insight workshops, that we encourage you to experiment with, to try. We are definitely available to try to help you through it. That's what we're doing with KCK right now. We'll be doing the same thing with Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in about 2 weeks. They're doing a 3 workshop series to develop all possible resource reallocation ideas to fund their sustainability goals and their climate action plan, very similar to City of Ann Arbor overall. But that's the flow. EK, I can
Excellent.
Back over to you, but that grand spectrum down to where we are today.
Thank you, Chris. Well, excellent. So hopefully today you got a great sense and feel for what we're trying to accomplish within these workshops. Again, it is trying to transform your organization through the rapid creation of insights that are actionable through using a funnel. Great ideas get funneled down into what could be done at the end of the day, where we're actually, again, moving you from ideation to a commitment. And that's, I think, one of the missing pieces that we see with lots of our organizations is they don't have a level of commitment with their data. Once they create the data, what do we do with it? Now we're doing further ideas. Again, using your employees as internal consultants to generate that. So at this point in time, I didn't look back to actually see if, in fact, there were any questions in the Ask Us Anything box. There aren't, but we would encourage you and welcome questions now. So if you have something that you would like to know a little bit more about, or maybe some thoughts and ideas, by all means, come off mute and go ahead and ask us. We still have about 8 minutes left of time yet for this webinar. Any questions, thoughts? You can use chat as well. If you are interested in engaging with us, by all means, you can either email me. My email address is in here. Zoom in there. Or Chris. Everybody knows Chris Fabian's email. You have that on your digital Rolodex. Let us know how we can help you. But again, happy to answer questions.
Maybe also, if you like this format, give us a sticky. If you didn't like this format, give us a sticky. Let us know what you think. We were sort of trying out this online whiteboard today to allow for more one-on-one or two-way communication sort of while we present.
Thanks, Marley, for the thumbs up. What we will do at the end of the day today too is we will download a PDF of this board, and we will make sure that we email that to you, so you'll have that for your records. And it looks like Liz has got this recorded today too. If you have others in your organization that would like to learn about what is an insight workshop, we can provide that recording to you as well.
Does anybody have an idea in their minds for how you would like to do an insight workshop already? Like, it could be for budget reduction strategies. It could be for specifically tackling an objective like equity in Denver or climate in Ann Arbor or Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Just curious.
Man, we might be able to reallocate back a lot of time to you guys if there are no questions today. Hopefully no one's overwhelmed by this. We've really tried to break this particular process down into components that are easily digestible. One of the other barriers that I could have talked about was the overwhelming nature sometimes of the work that we do together. And what we really are trying to accomplish here is simplification, keeping it simple. First, creating ideas. Everybody's got an idea. intuition, a gut feel for how they could change their organization. Next workshop, after a couple weeks of time in between, or in case of Pittsburgh, maybe a day because they want to move really quickly, is to move into filtering those thoughts and ideas, into refining them, getting them to a point of more actionability. And then that third workshop where you could use some simple exercises like dot voting, or voting upon as a group, that cross-departmental team that's working on creation of insights to decide, what are we going to recommend forward? What's going to move forward? What are we saying we're willing to put our name and reputation professionally behind? That's the third workshop. So we, again, breaking that down into simple, digestible, workable, and functional pieces.
I have a question if there's time.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think this is all great information. I'll probably have to go back and rewatch it all again and go through it all. So sorry if you already touched on this, but I think the idea that you mentioned earlier about the cross-department teams is a really great idea for these insight workshops. I was just curious, does that mean when rolling out those workshops, for example, in the city of Edmonton, we have kind of 7 major departments, I would say. So do you do it, how would you logistically facilitate a workshop in like an organization of our size?
Yeah, great question, Joanne. And we just did that was it last week? I don't know what day it is anymore. With Kansas City, Kansas, we had 125 participants. I felt like a chaos pilot. I was really like, man, this is a lot of people. But you know what? It worked extremely well. The level of collaboration and engagement was high. What we do is we don't start out with assigning people the breakout rooms. We do it randomly. And what we find is that random selection intersperses folks into different breakout rooms to do particular activities of creating insights together. It just adds to the richness of the experience for folks. One of the other things that we are capable of doing, if you're familiar with Zoom, Zoom allows for self-selection of breakout rooms as well. And it's a double-edged sword, because somebody's going to say, oh, I know Joanne, I'm going to hang out in Joanne's room. But we really would want to encourage folks to select a room behind a theme that they might be interested in. I want to do insight creation with Harm, or I want to do insight creation with Eric Fabian. I don't know who these guys are, but I'll join their room. But you're absolutely right. We can accommodate large organizations like Edmonton. We can, because we've proven that we can do that with a large organization like Kansas City, Kansas, that has 6,000 employees. I wouldn't want to do a workshop with 6,000 employees, but we can accommodate your organization.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. I wasn't sure if you go department by department or if it was more of a set of groups with mixed membership. And
yeah, good point, Joanne. And I think we can, part of what we would do is we could tailor a workshop that way, where we would work with you and your exec team to talk about what are you trying to achieve. And again, that goes back to this whole notion of what are you trying to achieve? How would you like to get there? What's your desired outcome? And if you've got thoughts and ideas of how to create those cross-departmental teams, we could do that with you. But really the goal is we want people all together in a room, all hearing each other's hopes and fears at the same time, so that we're not having to rebroadcast that in multiple workshops. Because what we found is the richness of having people become owners of their futures together, not separately. We want to preach and teach and have that experience for everybody to understand that you all own the future together, and the only way to get there is to work together.
Liz, I know you worked with Duluth, and they did their internal program mapping, and just reminded me that how did they go about choosing how certain departments, I mean, they had some insight as well about where program partnerships could exist, true?
Yes, and they went through, and their team of super users determined where they thought internal partnerships might exist at a more seamless level. So they started there, where they tried to pair cross-departmental partnerships where it was logical. And then they evolved with that. And they did this internally on their own at first, where they partnered those that logically fit together, and then they really started to deviate from that. So they started, for instance, Public Works and Fleet, I think were partnered at first, and then they would put, Public Works with Parks, and then they would put Fleet with Parks. So they went through the exercise multiple times and had the iterative process of insight creation, so that they had it from a lot of different perspectives, and that was very intentional from their budget director's side of things.
Super cool. All right. Well, we've hit the end of the hour for this world tour of insights. Thanks, Mike and EK, for running the digital experience. And thanks everybody for being here. Please stay in touch with us as you're coming up with ideas on insights. I know there's a couple on the line who, this is like a story that we pick up on after you've created data. So you might also have questions on what data are you talking about when you talk about program information and costs and all the work of program-based business intelligence and priority-based budgeting. Please feel free to reach out if you want some background on that information as well. But thanks everybody for the time.
Yeah, and Chris, just as if we were on site at your organization today, we're going to be cleaning the room. We're going to be cleaning our board. So we're going to hang around for another few minutes. So if you've got questions that you didn't want to ask the major group, we're going to be here for a bit to answer those if you've got them. Thanks for joining us.